History is all about looking forward. People look at it and think, oh, it's a static event. History is looking forward. History is all about optimism. It's about hope. It's about faith. It's about love. And Derrick's story, Derrick's dad's story, that's a beautiful example of that faith, hope, love, optimism that history brings.
Linebacker 1 and 2 was a strategic bombing campaign that occurred in North Vietnam on 18 December 1972. And the purpose of Operation Linebacker 1 and 2 was to bring the North Vietnamese government to the negotiating table so the U.S. administration could negotiate a settlement to the Vietnam conflict.
Robert Surton, retired Colonel, United States Air Force, served 30 years. The problem was that the North Vietnamese had withdrawn from a commitment to a treaty in October, early November of '72. President Nixon wanted them to come back to Paris. And the one thing we had never done was to send B-52s to Hanoi. And so he ordered the bombing of Hanoi. We took off out of Andersen Air Force Base on Guam in the morning of December the 18th, with a target time little after 8 p.m. And after 8.5 hours of flying, we were to be exactly to the second on time. Our bombing system was perfect. We found all the aiming points, and we had just opened the bomb bay doors at about 10 seconds to go, and almost immediately the electronics failed because we'd just been struck by the first of 2 surface-to-air missiles. The co-pilot, Bobby Thomas, started saying, "They've got the pilot, they've got the pilot." And the defense officer was saying, "Is anybody alive? Is anybody alive?" I looked over my left shoulder, and through the porthole in the door into the wheel well, I could see fire. So I knew we were on fire. We were at the bomb release point. We dropped the bombs quickly to get them out because they were right behind the fire. And then I remembered the fire was right also below the main mid-body fuel tank, which had about 10,000 pounds jet fuel in it. So about that time, the defense officer ejected. The pilot ordered the crew out, and so I went out the bottom at basically the bomb release point. We didn't know what happened to Bobby because he was alive and well talking when we ejected, but he never showed up in the prison camps.
When Robert Thomas's aircraft was shot down, the Thomas family would have to wait 6 years for final confirmation of his death. In that time, the Thomas family was told that he was going to be held in a POW MIA status until it could be confirmed whether he was alive or dead. Derrick was 5 years old when his father's aircraft was shot down, and from the age of 5 to the age of 11, Derrick every day was hoping that someday his dad might be walking through that door. When Derrick was 11 years old, the family was able to be notified by the Air Force after the forensic remains were identified in 1978 that in fact Robert Thomas was killed in action. And when you learn about, and as we've learned about what happened with Captain Thomas and Derrick, I think one of the most important things that came out of this for Derrick Thomas was that he wanted to honor his father.
He talked about it, but you could tell it was important to him. I know on November 11th, 1990, out here playing Seattle, back then we didn't have a salute to service game, but we did honor the fact that it was November 11th or the game was nearabouts. But actually on November 11th, 1990, Derrick had 7 sacks in one game.
Look out, Derrick Thomas on the front. He's having a ball. He's having a record day. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, when they start flying the aircrafts over, man, you could just see this guy light up like a Christmas tree. I mean, you could just look over to him and he just takes itself from out of the embodiment and goes to something totally different and just leave it all out there. And, you know, and I fed off that. We end up having a team record of 9, I think, over that whole day. And, man, when you get 7 in one game, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I gotta come back and catch him. If you get one early, you can guarantee you're gonna get 2 or 3 that day.
And there was just something in him that would just, whatever that was, as good as he was when it came to November 11th or a game right around November 11th, there was something inside him that just jacked up a little bit more. And he found an extra gear somehow, some way, and he showed it. And he may not have talked about it a whole lot, but you knew that it was on his mind.
On the 13th of November at halftime, we're going to do 2 important reveals. One is we're going to show our fans a salute to service patch. It'll be a large 30-inch by 30-inch replica of the patch. And then the other activation that we're going to do is the reveal of our shadow box. The items that the public will see that will be permanently affixed inside the shadow box, a black and white photograph of U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Thomas. It'll include a black and white photograph of Derrick Thomas. It will include our salute to service patch. It will include our salute to service coins. It will have John Mollison's rendition of the Charcoal 1 aircraft and a special charcoal rubbing that was taken from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial using a piece of charcoal in honor of Captain Robert Thomas and the B-52 that he flew, call sign Charcoal 1.
I remember when Derrick first came in, and one of the things that he was always, as a young man, searching to try to find, you know, his father. You know, being there that day with his mother, I just leaned over to her and I just say, hey, you had 2 very special young men in your life at one time, and I'm glad to meet one of them.
I was standing with Neil Smith on the sidelines. Neil looks up and he pointed to Derrick Thomas's name up on the stadium, and then he pointed to his name up on the stadium, and he says to me, I mean, he was not bragging. This was a heartfelt statement. He said, Derrick said, we got to get our name up there. We'll know we're good. We'll know we're doing something when we get our name up there. And he goes, then we'll be a part of it. And I'm listening to Neil, and I think to myself, I wish every American would look out and say, I want my name a part of something else too. I want my name part of the American narrative and have it be a part of cheers and good and fun and leadership and faith, hope, love, all that great stuff like those guys got.
I finally think that when Derrick told me he was searching for his father, came to me at that moment, and I'm sure it came to her too, that this is what he was searching for. And then when I looked to the heavens, I was, you know, kind of fool as I am now speaking on it. I knew that was a father and a son had a transition, that they met and seen each other. And man, I so miss that guy, man. It's not every day that I don't go by thinking about that young man.
I may not have had a right to be there. I'm just really grateful that I was. What I've learned about the Chiefs, it was a rare moment, but it was a moment that the Chiefs made happen. That's what I was thinking while I was out there.
She was very quiet. You know, she had that moment, and it was so special for me to be there for her, knowing that Derrick was here. That reward would be to him and her.
Thinking about Mom, I'm thinking about Neil, and I'm thinking about Derrick, and I'm thinking, where does this go? It's going to go someplace cool. Excuse me. The airplane became a symbol of the team. It became a symbol of how we're connected. And, you know, granted, I got to meet Colonel Surton, but Colonel Surton always let me know, you know, there's Captain Thomas. He had a little boy at home. He had a little boy at home. He had a little boy at home. And we always wonder about the crewman who was shot down or who died. But history will tell you that history passes itself on in mysterious ways. And how interesting that we would be here now talking about Derrick Thomas through his father. His father lives forever.